Greetings, barbecue family. Welcome to another live episode of the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ podcast. I'm your host, Kenyatta Robinson, and boy, it's good to be back on live. So first, I'd like to welcome everyone who may be tuning in live from Facebook or from YouTube. Definitely welcome your participation. The show thrives on it. So please, at any time, drop in your comments, join in the conversation. Love to have interactive feedback from you all. So I do appreciate you taking the time to tune in. So this week, I wanted to talk about the foil boat method for smoking a brisket. So this is a method that I've heard about, and I'm sure many of you who are really into barbecue, you've probably heard about this as well. It's a method for smoking a brisket that has grown in popularity, I'd say, over the last maybe 2 years or so. I want to say Chud's Barbecue. I think he's the one that is being credited as inventing this method for smoking a brisket and making it pretty popular. I'd seen a few videos with it, but I had never gotten around to trying it. I'm a guy that traditionally I've done my briskets by wrapping in butcher paper, and my thought being that that allows the bark on the brisket the opportunity to breathe, as well as a way to preserve the crust. Whereas when you wrap a brisket tightly in aluminum foil, I think that that changes the process in which the brisket is cooking, and it actually then the humidity or the steam that's forming inside of it while it's in that tight foil actually begins to work against the bark that you've worked so hard to form on your brisket. So just knowing that, that was something that kind of steered me away from even wanting to give the foil boat method a try. But when I looked more closely at it, I think what's cool about the foil boat method is that although you're kind of using foil to form a boat shape around the brisket, you're not covering the top of the brisket. So it's not sealed entirely within that foil. Just like when you're smoking with butcher paper, leaving the top uncovered also allows the brisket to breathe. So you're not doing any harm to the bark that you've worked so hard to form throughout the cook. So I'm going to get more into this. But before I do, I did want to mention also, if you are looking to get involved with an online barbecue community, the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ channel, myself, we are launching a new online barbecue community for folks who love barbecue. And it's an opportunity to interact with each other. It's off of Facebook. Facebook is kind of full of distractions, and you might start off looking at one thing and then you get a notification and a whole bunch of other stuff comes in, and next thing you know, you're just doing something and something totally unrelated to barbecue. So I'm looking to do this off of Facebook. And if you are interested, I definitely welcome your participation. The official launch is happening. We will launch by the end of this month, by May 31st. And shortly thereafter, the doors for the initial phase will close. Just go to backyardsmokemaster.com/community. And let me get that up on the screen. Actually, that's not the right one. Hold on. There we go. So if you're interested, go to backyardsmokemastersociety.com/community to sign up and get more information about this new community that we're forming. Got a comment here from Marco. Thank you, Marco, for weighing in. Yeah, he says, I was skeptical about the boat. Now I use it more often than not. And you know what? Kind of like a spoiler alert, I did my first boat for Mother's Day, and it turned out really well. And just being able to see that process up close and personal and seeing how, the boat captures the juices from your brisket and basically allows it to kind of marinate or braise in its own juices while you finish off the cook and get it up to like 203 to 205. You're finishing it off. And then again, not sealing the top, it does preserve the bark. And it was pretty impressive. And I actually think that I too, Marco, I think that I'll also be using the foil boat method moving forward more often than not. I totally agree with that. So actually, I do have a little bit of a deck that I put together to kind of help talk about and illustrate this process a little better. So bear with me while I get that up here from my good friend Bruce, aka Correctional Officer for Lockdown. Good evening, Kenyatta. Did you experience in with the stall when you cooked your brisket? Did the foil method affect the stall? When you wrap it in the boat, you actually do that when you're at the stall. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So basically, I took my brisket, left it uncovered, just on the smoker, going steady for the first however many hours it took. I can't remember, but I got it up to close to 170. I think it was around 167, 168 when I got to the stall. So it's at that point when I pulled it off of the smoker, wrapped it in the aluminum foil boat, and then put it back on the smoker to finish off the cook. So I think having the aluminum foil around the brisket does help accelerate the cook, to push you through the stall. But again, we're not wrapping the top. I wish I had taken better notes because I can't remember how much longer it took me to get from 170 to 203. It was probably another couple of hours. But overall, I felt like the cook went, in terms of time, it went pretty fast, but I would say that wasn't so much because of the foil boat. I think that was more because I'm still also learning the Weber Smoky Mountain, and my temperatures, although for the first, I'd say maybe the first 6 hours of the cook, I was doing pretty good at keeping my average temperature around 235-ish. But then later in the cook, my temperatures got hotter than I wanted, and it started to be up closer to around 275. And I would say that probably contributed more to pushing through the stall and finishing off the cook than the foil boat. Bruce says, awesome, I'm all ears. I'll be cooking my first brisket Memorial Day weekend, injected with Jack Daniels too. Whatever method you choose for your brisket, to me, it's kind of like the home run or the World Series of barbecue is when you take on the brisket. So you said this will be your first one. So definitely have a game plan, be patient, give yourself time. You probably need to at least give yourself 1 hour for every pound, that the brisket is. So if the brisket's 12, 13 pounds, give yourself at least 12, 13 hours. And that's not including the time that you rested. And that's also important. Make sure that you rest the brisket. You're going to spend a long time smoking it, and you don't want to mess it up by taking it off of the smoker and then not allowing it to rest. Some people say give it at least an hour, give it at least 2 hours. I try to give myself a minimum of 4 hours rest. And I use a Cambro to rest mine. You can put it in an oven and have the oven at its lowest setting, like 160 degrees. You can do it that way. You can put the brisket in the cooler and pack it with some towels. That's another way to do it as well. Marco says, I found better results when I moved to the foil boat at the end of the stall. Yeah. Better bark on the underside. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. So I definitely, like I said, I did mine at around 167 or so, but that makes sense. It's been in the stall for a while and you're getting close, you think, to breaking through. He's saying that's a good time to move to the foil boat. But that's, from what I understand, that's about when you want to move and apply the foil boat method. All right, let's get to the presentation that I have here. So what is the foil boat method? So basically, it's considered to be a simple and effective method where you wrap your brisket in aluminum foil, leaving the top open, creating a boat to hold in the moisture and the juices. And I can attest that this is an easy method. At first, I thought it might be more complicated or more complicated than it looks when I first thought about doing this method, but I found really easy. I just took, and let's move to the next slide here. Actually, the other good point I want to mention here is that the benefit prevents the brisket from drying, and it yields a brisket that is more tender and flavorful as a final product. Faster cooking helps you push through the stall. Like I said, you generally want to do it, as Marco suggested, apply the foil boat method when you're in the stall or about to break through the stalls. I did mine at 168. Another benefit is the bark retention. Again, because you're leaving that top open, it allows the brisket to continue to breathe and you're not sweating away the bark that you've worked so hard early on through the cook. You're able to maintain it. And it's really easy. So I just took 2 long sheets of aluminum foil and I put it in a T shape and I put the brisket in the center, and then you just crumple that foil all the way around it to form the boat shape. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but I usually or used to always wrap my brisket in pink butcher paper. And I'm not the greatest. My technique isn't that superb in terms of wrapping in butcher paper. I get the job done, but I found it easier to wrap mine or to form the boat shape with the foil than I did to do that wrapping in butcher paper. I think it is a pretty easy and effective method. Another thing I recommend, if you are doing the foil method, there's always that argument about whether or not you should be smoking your brisket fat side up or fat side down. Conventional wisdom says if you're smoking on an offset smoker, a stick burner, that you should go fat side up, because the top of the smoker or inside of the chamber is where the temperature is going to be the hottest. So you want your fat to be facing the hottest, where the most heat is being generated inside of your smoker. So in an offset smoker, it's going to be up at the top, so fat side up. But then they say in just about everything else, you should go fat side down. Pellet smoker, the heat is coming from the bottom. Drum smoker, I guess the heat is coming from the bottom, I think is the conventional wisdom. But I would say if you're doing the foil boat method, no matter what you're smoking with, I recommend going fat side. I just like fat side up just in general, because I just believe that as that fat breaks down, it's also protecting the meat that's underneath it, keeping it from getting too dry. So let me know in the comments what you guys prefer. Do you generally prefer to go fat side up, or do you like fat side down, and why? So again, pretty easy to form the boat around your brisket. So after you get your brisket wrapped in your boat, again, leaving the top open, the next thing you want to do is just return it to the smoker and finish off the cook. I like to get my brisket up to around 203 to 205 internal. But even more important than that, when you think your brisket is done, take your instant read thermometer, take that probe and stick it in and see if it goes in without resistance. That's what you're looking for. You want your probe to go into that brisket like a knife going through hot butter. There should be very little resistance, and you want to test it in different parts of the brisket. Don't just rely on maybe sticking it into the point. Go around the flat, go all around and see if you get any resistance before you pull your brisket off. Again, the key, I think, to smoking a good brisket is having patience. Be patient. Marco says, yeah, he agrees. Go fat side up. That's another vote for fat side up. If you're a fat side down guy, if you're a proponent of that, please let me know why you think fat side down is the way to go. Yeah, I think fat side up is the way to go. So then once you get your brisket up to at least 203 degrees, and you've done that probe test and it's going in there nice and easy. Again, very important. You want to get your brisket off of the smoker and let it rest. So I put here, let it rest for at least 1 hour. I do believe the longer, the better. Give your brisket more time. So Marco, let me know, how long do you let your briskets rest? And correctional officer for lockdown gives another vote for fat side up. So yeah, we definitely want to do that, I think. Smoking a brisket is not difficult. It's just, it is a labor of time. I think also depending on what you are smoking on will also contribute to how difficult it is. For instance, if you're smoking with a pellet smoker, you're just setting the temperature, letting it go. And all you have to do besides keeping an eye on your brisket is making sure you don't run out of pellets after around 8-9 hours. Make sure that you keep that pellet hopper filled. If you're smoking with a charcoal-based cooker, you'll also probably have to keep an eye on the fuel. You may have to refuel at some point. If you're using like a PK 360, you'll most certainly will eventually have to refuel because it doesn't really hold that much fuel compared to some other cookers. Weber Smoky Mountain, especially the 22-inch or the Weber Summit Kamado, you can fill those up with a lot of fuel, a lot of charcoal. I use my Weber Smoky Mountain over for my Mother's Day brisket cook, and it had plenty of charcoal left. I mean, even after I pulled my brisket off, I had shut all the dampers, were all the way closed, woke up the next morning, and it was still, the smoker was still warm. It still had plenty of fuel left. With your brisket, another thing you do want to pay attention to is you also don't want your surface to dry out. So after it's been on the smoker for a few hours, you might want to just open up the lid, take a look. If that surface does look like it's getting dry, just spritz it. I spritz with water. I keep it super simple, but you can do other things. You can spritz with beef broth or beef stock if you want, just lots of other things, whatever you want, just something to keep it cool. Just whatever you do, just be cognizant of if you're spritzing with something that has sugar in it, because the sugar can burn. So I would tend to try to stay away from things that have brisket. So again, if you would like a copy of this deck, just go to backyardsmokemaster.com/boat and I will get that sent to you. Correctional officer for lockdown asks, what type of charcoal did you use? What type of layout would you recommend? Would a snake method work? I think a snake method would work. That would be a great way to make sure that you're keeping your temperatures low and slow. Now for this cook, let's see, I was using B&B briquettes. You could go with Kingsford, Royal Oak, any type of briquette. For me, it was mostly just a function of the fact that I was cooking with my Weber Smoky Mountain. So I wanted to use briquettes because they'll burn consistently, a little more, not necessarily consistently, but from briquette to briquette, they burn the same. So in that sense, it's a consistent burn. Whereas if you're smoking with lump charcoal, each piece of lump is going to be a different size, going to burn differently. So I preferred using briquettes for this cook. And I use the minion method. So far with my Weber Smoky Mountain, that's what I've been doing, is using the minion method. We're basically filling it up, especially for a long cook like this, filling up my charcoal basket, digging out a hole in the center, and then lighting. I lit around maybe 10 to 12 briquettes. I lit them, let them ash over, and then poured them into that center, that hollow center in the middle of all the briquettes. And then those will slowly ignite all of the unlit coal. So that allowed me to basically have briquettes going for a super long cook. So that was the method that I used. Marco says, I end up resting overnight, and that's often what I do, or until it cools to around 140 degrees. That gives it time to settle. Yeah, I totally recommend and agree with that approach. Like I said, at least 2 hours, but 4 is better. And if you can afford the time to let it go even longer than that, like overnight, especially if you do have a Cambro or something that will let that temperature come down slowly, that gives that meat, that brisket, time to settle. The more settled it is when it's time for you to actually slice into it, the more tender and juicy your cook is going, your meat, your end result is actually going to be. So I definitely agree with that approach, giving it more time. Correctional officer for lockdown says, what about adding wood chunks, apple, cherry, etc.? Yeah, a lot of things go well with beef, with brisket. Because I use the Weber Smoky Mountain, I put my wood chunks at the bottom of the charcoal basket and the coals on top of it to allow the wood to smolder during the cook. Now, depending on what cooker you're using, it may be better to put your wood chunks on top of the coals. It really just depends. It's your preference. Let's see, for this cook, I used hickory and cherry, but you can use apple. Cherry is perfectly fine. It's a long cook, and that smoke flavor, it's going to absorb into the brisket slowly. It's a big, tough cut of meat, so I think it can pretty much handle pretty much any wood that you want to throw at it. Most things go well with brisket. Oak goes great with brisket. I don't really mess with mesquite. And I know a lot of folks in Texas, especially Texas, Central Texas barbecue, a lot of the restaurants, they're using mesquite. And I think that's great when you have a huge like offset smoker that they're probably using. But I think backyard barbecue, I would just say be a little cautious with regard to mesquite. All right, No Oinks says, yes, I prefer briquettes in my Weber Smoky Mountain. I'm soon to try the snake method in my WSM. I'm wondering if it will lead to more consistent temps. Yeah, I'm wondering about that too. I don't know if you caught me early on, but I was talking about, I'm still getting and learning my Weber Smoky Mountain. I've got the 22-inch. I've only done a few cooks on it. And I'm still trying to figure out how to keep my temperatures really low. I want to do a cook where I'm able to keep my average temperature like below 230. Like if I can get it in the 235, 225 range. And I'm kind of wondering, actually, I think for sure that the snake method probably would be easier for me to achieve that. So far, I've been doing the minion method, and I really had to close off my dampers And maybe because I am using the 22-inch and I got a third-party charcoal basket that allows me to put even more fuel in there than the default basket that comes with the Weber Smoky Mountain. So I got a lot of fuel in there, and I have to keep my dampers pretty much closed almost all the way throughout the cook. It just keeps going, and the temperatures are still creeping up on me after a while. So for you guys that do have experience with the Weber Smoky Mountain, please throw in some tips. If you have some ideas about what works well to keep your temperatures below 240, like 235, 225, definitely let me know. I really do like the foil boat method for smoking a brisket. It actually worked out better than I thought it would. I'm thinking about the things that I can do differently. Like I said, I want to get my average temperature down a little bit more. But everyone that had the brisket, they loved it. Everyone gave it stellar reviews, very happy. It was a nice smoke ring, good smoke flavor. Again, the bark was preserved by doing it this way. So I definitely recommend that method. I think it's one that I will be using quite often moving forward. Okay, so Marco says, do you still get to use your offset often, like those videos? Marco, I need to make some more videos with my offset smoker, the LSG. I mean, that was pretty much the genesis of the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ channel on YouTube, was all around my LSG. And I haven't done a video featuring the LSG in quite some time, but it has been on my mind. Thanks for putting that bug in my ear and reminding me that I need to get some more videos out with the offset. All right, No Oink says, I love your content. It's a pleasure to speak technically about barbecue. By the way, my moniker is pronounced the same as the word boinks. It stands for no oinks, meaning no pork, LOL. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's clever. Okay, so no pork. All right, so we're sticking, I'm guessing, to beef, chicken, and probably some fish. And that's another thing. I finally got a fish video out not too long ago where we did halibut. I thought that recipe is pretty good. It's a combination of using the hot barbecue rub from Killer Hogs along with lemon pepper. And I think that goes really well on whitefish. So in addition to halibut, I think it goes really well with catfish as well. All right, question from correctional officer. How long did you have your brisket out before you threw it on the grill? Let's see. I trimmed the brisket the night before, and then I didn't do anything to it. After I trimmed it, I just put it back in the refrigerator and let it sit there overnight. And then the next morning, while I was preparing my smoker to get it ready, actually before I started that process, when I got up in the morning, that's when I went and seasoned the brisket. And then I put it back in the fridge while I got the smoker ready and up to temperature. So I'm guessing all in all, it was probably maybe an hour and a half from the time that I seasoned it and actually got it onto the smoker. So with a brisket, I don't think that it's really necessary to do a lot of pre-brining, pre-anything. I think you can wait until a few hours before you're ready to do your brisket, smoke it, to get it ready. I think for me, the key part and the more time-consuming part is trimming. So that's where I would say trim it the day before you intend to smoke it. You want to try and leave about 1/4 inch of fat. Try and get out all of the really hard pockets of fat. and get it prepared. Okay, so I think he was saying noinks. I think that's what his point. He said that it's pronounced like boinks. So noinks. I think it finally clicked on me. Noinks is saying halal. Am I saying that correctly? Halal found beef, chicken, lamb, goat, seafood, and other meats. That's what he likes to smoke, staying completely away from pork. Is that like a kosher diet? I'm not really sure, so forgive me if I'm misspeaking here, but definitely let me know. Correctional officer says lamb and goat are on my list. And I know that this came up a while ago. It might have been you, correctional officer Bruce, excuse me. He was asking me about a lamb recipe. And yeah, that's something that Janine and I, we really haven't explored, lamb and goat. I'm definitely open. So the more I hear you guys talking about it, and I do see lamb all the time, like at Costco, Sam's Club. So maybe that's something that we'll have to try. So you guys, if you've got some good recipes for these things, let me know for sure. And then Bruce also says grill and smoked squid. Now, wow. Okay. Now that is definitely something that I have not yet tried. I'm curious about that. I'm curious. I did the beef oxtails and I actually bought some more. I'm kind of wondering if squid is a little bit similar because it's so different from your big cuts of meat. I'm wondering with squid, do you have to, most seafood cooks pretty fast, but let me know, does it take a little bit longer than most fish to get your squid done? I'm curious. Halal means permissible, so it's Arabic. Halal food is to Islam as kosher food is to Judaism. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that for me. So that's good to know. Correctional officer says lamb and goat will go great with kebabs. And that's another thing. I also picked up a couple of kebab accessories that Weber sells, and it actually is supposed to work with the rotisserie. So it's like a rotisserie attachment, a kebab attachment that works with rotisserie. I picked that up and I need to give that a shot. I've had it now. It's been sitting in a box for a couple of months, but need to give that a try and see what that's all about. All right. And Marco says lamb is perfect for the smoker. So where do you guys how are you seasoning the lamb? I mean, is it just are you going with SPG, salt, pepper, garlic, or is there something in particular? Is there a store-bought or maybe one of the commercial brands, maybe Meat Church or Killer Hogs? Does somebody have a particular rub that you're using for lamb? I'm pretty curious, so definitely let me know in the comments about that. And Noinks says, lamb is wonderful smoked. Lamb chops cook quickly depending on the size. You can season the same as any other meat. Okay, that makes sense. If I do try it, I think I'll probably would just start with salt, pepper, garlic and kind of go from there and see how that works. So, hey, let's take a moment to pause here. Again, I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm putting together an online barbecue community, kind of like Facebook, but it won't be on Facebook. Some of the key points about this community is that it's a place for people like us who love talking about barbecue, love sharing tips about barbecue, and what I think is the benefit is it's a community. I'm trying to provide information for you guys about barbecue. You guys are also providing me with information about barbecue, giving me some insight about lamb and goat and different things. We all can learn and get better at barbecue by sharing information. So that's really the main thrust, the main purpose of the community. But then it'll also be fun. The community, we're going to have monthly virtual meetups, and that could be sessions like this, or it could be cooking sessions. We're already going to be doing a 4th of July virtual cookout. That'll be kind of be like the big signature kickoff. Just enjoying each other's company and virtually barbecuing together. I think that'll be really nice. We'll also have some virtual cooking challenges, and I do intend to give away some nice surprise prizes for folks who are the most engaged and who participate. And then also to help educate everyone, we'll also have monthly barbecue master classes as well. So if you're interested in the community, would definitely love to have you. And again, basically all you got to do to get more information is just go to backyardsmokemaster.com/community to sign up to get more information about the community. Would love to have you. Noinks says nice on the barbecue community. So I appreciate that, and definitely check us out. Give it a shot. Check us out. I think it's going to be really exciting and a lot of fun. So I hope to have as many of you there as possible. And I know Bruce, correctional officer for lockdown, is the guy that kind of put this whole bug in my ear first about doing a 4th of July virtual cookout. And then as I thought more about it, why stop there? Let's take it further than just doing a one-off cookout. Let's just make it an ongoing online community. So it's something we're giving a shot to. And I'm happy that Bruce is signed up. He's going to be in the community. And he says this is truly going to be an awesome community of barbecue enthusiasts. So I do appreciate that. Noink says, to me, goat tastes similar to beef. Okay. He says, my wife doesn't care for it. By the way, you can get a whole lamb at Costco in my area. I think I've seen like a whole lamb, or maybe it was a whole goat, like at the business Costco. I've seen that. So yeah, depending on where you are, you may have easier access to things, to goat, to lamb. You might have easy access to it depending on what they carry in your area. Correctional officer says, has anyone ever thought of smoking or grilling veal? Oh my goodness. Now, I have to be honest. Oh my God. Growing up as a kid, man, I just could not stand when my mom would make veal and she would make me eat it. And boy, oh boy, veal, liver, ugh. But, you know, hey, maybe getting it smoked or grilled would definitely add something to it for sure. You know, smoking and grilling makes everything taste better, right? Correctional officer says goat tastes similar to pot roast. Wow, okay. So both Noinks as well as correctional officer saying they're giving some pretty strong comparisons, goat to beef. That's new for me. So I have to give that some consideration and give that a shot. That is pretty interesting. Shiny Insanity, hello, says, just wanted to stop by and say I've enjoyed watching your videos. Great content. Oh, I appreciate that, Shiny Insanity. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. Welcome to the podcast. The podcast comes on every Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, so you can catch us live. And then, of course, we also have the other videos that we're putting out on YouTube on a regular basis. So trying to get more videos up on YouTube as well. So appreciate you stopping in and saying hi. Correctional officer says, I will definitely have Cornish hens on the grill for my Memorial Day cook too. Yeah, Cornish hens. I love doing Cornish hens. A little bit smaller than your chickens, but that is also, they're just versatile. I think that's what I love about doing chicken and hens as well. Versatile, I think probably, you can do more things with different rubs with hens and chickens probably than with anything else. Noix says, I haven't had veal since I was a kid. Yeah, I'm in that boat. I brought home goat instead of lamb one day. I'll never make that mistake again. And Noinks also is giving a sign-off endorsement for Cornish hens as well. Great idea. All right, guys. Well, it looks like the comments are starting to slow down, so I think we're going to get ready to sign off. But I do appreciate everyone for tuning in and spending a little bit of time on this Friday evening. Shout out to everyone that contributed and left a comment. Again, that is the engine that really drives the show. So appreciation to Marco, to Bruce, aka Correctional Officer for Lockdown, also from Noinks. Appreciate you. And then also we got a comment that came in from, where is it? Just had it. I don't see it. Shiny Insanity. So again, thank you as well. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Again, look for us every Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Also, if you can't catch live, you can always watch the replays available on YouTube on demand. And then the audio only version is also available on most of the podcasts. Wherever you listen to your podcasts, we can be found there as well. So again, thank you all. I really do appreciate, I'm always humbled by everyone who tunes in and chimes in. I'm always just happily humbled that I'm able to find a community of folks who love to talk about barbecue as much as I do. Appreciate you all. So this is Kenyatta Robinson. Thanks again for tuning in to the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ podcast, and have a great rest of the evening as well as the weekend. Take care, everyone.